Sean became an organ donor in 2008 when on his way home for dinner, he was struck and killed by a car on his bicycle riding home. At the time, we really didn't know much about organ donation. I never knew anyone who was an organ donor. We just knew we had a very injured boy. And once we got to the emergency room, we realized that he wasn't going to survive. So my husband and I made the decision at that point, we needed something positive to come out of this. So we actually asked about organ donation at the hospital. And they said that it was possible that he could, they would ask, and it was a possibility that he could become an organ donor. So for the next 2 days, while he was being evaluated for his brain injury and being declared brain dead, we started to get information about organ donation. He was airlifted to Cooper Hospital in Camden. And at that point, we had to understand the severity of his brain injuries. And it was difficult because the doctors had a hard time explaining it to us, what was going on. I had a friend who was a nurse that really helped us and explained what was going on, because brain death is very new to us and we just didn't comprehend. But once we did, we realized that we needed to do something positive. So we asked about organ donation, and it has absolutely changed my life over the last 11 years. I just believe deep in my soul that something told me to ask. I wasn't a registered organ donor. My husband was not. I've never known anyone who received an organ. I never knew anyone who needed an organ. I never knew anybody who donated organs. I believe this is what Sean was meant for. And I'm blessed that I figured it out. When we told the nurse, her name was Sue. I love her to death. I'll never forget her. When I told Sue what we wanted to do, she actually called the sharing network, got herself in a little bit of trouble, she said, but she said, this is what you want, I'm going to make the phone call. And she made the phone call immediately. So people were there probably sooner than they would have been normally, and we approached them for the organ donation. My whole family got involved and became part of what happened to Sean afterwards. So that's been extremely helpful to us. We technically did not go home empty-handed. We went home knowing that other people were going to live. And because of our desire to know this, the sharing network, I had letters within 4 weeks. So we actually were getting contact from people and knew who received his organs and what organs and how they were doing. And that's where the story next begins, because they've all become part of our lives. They're not strangers. We know them. They know us. We have family parties together. My family's gone from 2 kids and my husband to 3 grandkids, 4 recipients that I talk to on a regular basis, and a whole community that we've met through organ donation. Because we had to make the decision for him. How do you know that this is what Sean would have wanted? And it wasn't until we came home, after we made a decision, as we were starting to plan his funeral, we went on to his social media pages and his emails and just started trying to put things together, and we found it. And we didn't know about that quote that he wrote until we came home. And it has become our focus point, that we all die. The goal is to create something that lives forever. And he literally wrote that right before he walked out the door, because we had been on vacation. He came home. He was getting ready to go out with his friends. And I believe he probably wrote it about music because he loved to write music, but it just stuck with us when we saw that. It was out of a 14-year-old kid. It was pretty amazing. I think that from my experience with my donors, even my donors who I have a relationship with, there's an extreme sense of guilt, survivor's guilt. I've been through this with 3 of them now. So we've actually come up with, the first one that went through it was Melissa, the kidney recipient. I talked to her all the time, but then for a while she stopped. I didn't talk to her for like 2 months, and I thought, something's not right. So I called her. And we made a decision. When you're waiting for an organ transplant, what do? You have to pray. But you can't pray. It doesn't sound right to pray that someone's going to die. You can't do that. So what we said is, you don't pray for somebody to die. You pray that someone makes the right decision when someone dies. So I think on the donor family side, sometimes you don't hear from them, because what I've heard from several of them is, how do you put this in a letter And how do I have the right to say thank you for saving my life when someone you love died? And unfortunately, they don't even know how they died, except for the fact it was tragic. It wasn't a long-term illness. It never is. It's usually something sudden and unexpected. And in my case, a 14-year-old boy. How do you even reach out to a mother of a 14-year-old child and say, thank you for saving my life when your son died? It's this, getting past that sometimes is the hardest part. So the good news is when you're going to get that letter the first time, the very first correspondence, you know it's coming because you just don't open your mailbox one day and find a letter blindsided. They contact you each time and say, I have a letter here from your recipient. Would you like to receive it? And then they send it to you through the mail. So you know it's coming. You're prepared. You understand that this person reached out to you. You said you would like to read the letter, and you get that letter in the mail. And then it can proceed to other things like phone calls and face-to-face meetings. And I've done face-to-face meetings with just myself, my husband, and the recipient. I've had it where it's been facilitated by the hospitals with the nurses there just to make sure. Whatever you may put you in a comfortable area, but you don't open up the mailbox one day and find a letter that you weren't expecting. You don't pick up the phone one day and somebody on the other side says, thank you, I have your son's heart. You're prepared. My son's considered a hero and lifesaver. I mean, what else can you ask for a memory of your son? They call him a hero. That's amazing to me. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything else. He's a great kid. He always was. But how could he ever have ended up as a hero to people? He saved their lives.